Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. You are watching a best of 3 Zendikar Rising traditional draft with Travis Semulin Sours. Chat, say hello to YouTube. If you'd like to watch the drafting live, you can do so at www.twitch.tv/Semulin. All right, so we've been talking some in chat about the differences between drafting casually while you're just sitting here playing best of 3 and trying to draft open versus the way that you would approach a draft if you really need to win that draft, whatever the reason is. Maybe it's your one F&M draft that you get to do this week. And there have been times in my life where I got to draft once a week and that was it. So it was really important to me that I was able to do that draft and do well. And I explained to chat the concept of leaning into variance instead of away from it. That is, if I'm just drafting and there's really no stakes on the line, I'm going to try to stay open as long as possible and avoid high variance cards. Whereas if I really need to win the draft, I'm far more willing to first pick a gold card or pick a synergy card that really goes into one deck and try to make that work. The idea is you want to swing for the fences in that draft that you really have to win and try to get lucky. If you don't, the way Modern Magic works, you'll still get a playable deck. It's not like you're going to get a pile of garbage and not be able to do anything. So like worst case scenario, let's say I first pick the Gold Cleric card over a reasonable removal spell, which is something you're likely to see in this draft because I'm going to try to lean into the synergies. It's not like if I pass a Royal Eruption for the Cleric of Life's Blood that we can't still get into red and have a playable red deck. We'll just have a slightly worse one than if I had drafted open. The difference is by first picking that Cleric, if we do get a good Cleric stack or get a reasonable Cleric stack, it's going to be significantly better because of that gold card. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys and gals that are watching on YouTube, that's the strategy I'm going to be approaching with here. Normally, the way you see me draft is trying to draft open with the idea that I don't really care whether I win this draft right now or not. I just want to increase my win percentage over the next 200 drafts that I do. And generally speaking, being open will do that for you. So there's the intro and kind of what we're going for. And I'm going to try to have that mentality while we go through the draft. It'll be looking more for synergy pieces and combo pieces, because I'll want to have something powerful and broken in the deck if possible. If it goes well, you'll see us first pick a gold card or a synergy card, be able to build around it and have a very good version of that deck. And if it goes poorly, you'll see me end up with kind of an okay deck with leftover pieces by the end. So that's kind of what we're going for here. What's up, Zach? Good to see you again. I hope things have been well in your world. All right, I'll pause the YouTube until the draft fires. All right, here's our pack, and we're drafting as if we need to win this draft. This draft is important, and that's going to shape where we're going. So really, the only two things to think about with that perspective, we need the most powerful thing we can get going. I think Morag is the most powerful thing we can get going. And ideally what I'm going to do is pick Morag and then try to pick red cards that go with him. It doesn't even matter what they are. And then stay open and find a second color that's open. But we're likely to try to force red in this because the power level is certainly here. The other option would be to consider the Attended Healer and go for one of those. This pack isn't a perfect one for us to open in this example, other than it has a very powerful mythic. So we're just going to grab that. But like replace this with an okay rare and put a removal spell down in one of these slots, and we're probably taking the Attended Healer. All right, here, man, I want to stay open. I'm so conditioned to staying open. Like it's really difficult for me because I really want to try to stay open. If we're really trying to slam the door on this draft, I think there's an argument that our pick should be the Relic Golem or the Rabid Bite. There's an argument that we could take the Ambusher. I'm thinking there's a possibility I can wield the Brushfire Elemental. If we go red-green, it would be with the concept that we're going to wheel the Brushfire Elemental, because generally nobody at the table wants those. Like, this is the pack I really want to see something like a Royal Eruption in, so we could take a red card, but we don't have that opportunity. There's a serious argument for taking the Relic Golem here, but I'm going to give this a try. Yeah, the Relic Golem could lead to rogue things, but I think I want to push this. We could definitively get into something like red-green landfall. If we're doing that, we'd probably want the Canopy Baloth. Yeah, I'm going to need to lean in a little bit here. I think the Electromancer is probably the last card we'd be interested in here. I could see an argument for the Champion, but you'd need to be specifically in Party. And the good thing about Party decks is you don't need to take the Electromancer third pick. Yeah, here's our challenge, is red isn't actually opening up before us. So, like, you can't force it. You can just take the highest payoff picks. I'd like to take a red or green card here, but there kind of isn't one. We could take the Horn Beetle, which is not going to be great with this build so far. Or we could accept that black is probably likely to be more open, which would still lead us to the Horn Beetle, wouldn't it? Yeah, I think the Horn Beetle is actually the highest payoff pick here, because if red is going to be denied, we could get into green-white landfall or green-black counters and get value out of this Horn Beetle either way. Because red is being cut. Now this, I've argued over and over and over that if you're drafting with the open strategy, pick 5 is the most important pick of your draft. So we went for the higher payoff card with Morag. We didn't get there, but this is where we actually know what is open. Can you tell what it is? You should be able to tell what it is. It's green, black, counters. Because there's just pieces for this deck. All of them are here. And we've had 4 people look at them and not be interested in them. So I think, even though we were trying to force this a little bit, we've ended up finding ourselves in a green-black counters deck anyway, which is fine. We want the Bright Blade here rather than the Scion of the Swarm. The counters are interesting, but getting the life gain going in green is difficult. This also potentially leaves us the spot to move back into red if we'd like. And there's a possibility that we would like to, but I do believe that we're kind of committed to green at this point. So I think here I'm just going to take the Dauntless Survivor. Because, like, realistically, these are the only 2 cards that require us to be green-black. So I think I'm actually ending up drafting open anyway. Maybe this wasn't a great example of what I was trying to show. I don't particularly want any of these cards, but this one's playable. That's a late Geyser Mage. That's a very late Geyser Mage. Let's talk. Okay, Stomper leaves us some avenue back into red. Yeah, you're still going to need to be flexible. The Electromancer spun, and given that we have a Bright Blade, an Ambusher, and a Survivor, we could get some value out of this. So red's back on the table. I think the Geyser Mage was a bit of a fluke. Constrictor came back too. So we really need to make a determination here about green or red. Now, here's the part where we are going to shoot for the moon. Because I think we're supposed to take this Luminarch Aspirant. I think we're pretty easily supposed to take this Luminarch Aspirant and be ready for green-white. We get past a couple decent white cards, all of a sudden we're in. And if we don't, I'm not missing anything out of this pack. Like, the deck would be better with an Arbor Mage or a Blood Priest in it. But if we're green-white, all of a sudden this looks pretty good. Nobody cares about the Ambusher. We can just play it if we're there. Same with this. There's not a super compelling reason to be playing the black cards currently, because this can go just as well in green-white. The challenge for us here is there's a Feed the Swarm. So the idea with this draft is we wanted to draft like this is an important draft and we'd like to win. And there's 0% chance we're going to pick an Omnath in that scenario. I think the Feed the Swarm payoff is just better. We need to make sure we have removal. I want it here. Yeah, okay. I think we found our lane. It was briefly exciting for a moment. But I think it's time for us to hone in on these counter shenanigans and get something going. I'm not so if I want to win a draft, I'm not drafting a 3-color draft. Like, is there a possibility we splash this? Sure. But I'm not that interested in it. Like, the Scythe Cat, I think, it still leaves us the opportunity to get into green-white counters if that's exceptionally open, which is why I'm valuing it here over the Vanquish the Weak. But I think we found our lane. It would take something pretty significant to get me off of that here. Although the Felidar is making me think. We can talk about the Felidar. We need to see like a pacifism next. So this is still on the menu. Felidars are good if you can hit lands consistently after you play it, which we currently are not really in a position to do that. We could take Reclaim, but I don't think we're actually looking to splash here. In my experience, you only need to splash if you've got very powerful things to do, and we don't. We've got reasonable things to do. I think that puts me on the aesthetic here. We'll stick with the green cards for now and see where this goes. Because I think we're between green-white and green-black, and we just don't quite have a clear direction yet. I'll play 2 Bright Blades, though. That's not a problem. Visionary is a decent pickup here. I tried to do an example of kind of forcing a deck, and instead I found myself drafting more open than ever. But somehow that's just the way the cookie crumbles. I'm going to take the Sky Dancer. I still think green-black's a little more likely here. Although this Felidar is pushing us a little more towards the white. I'm not opposed to that. I need like 1 payoff for it and we can talk. Disenchant in the size board is not bad. The Hellion is reasonable, but I don't think we can start thinking about moving back into this. Spare Supplies I often play. I mean, there's still some possibility we end up with the red. I guess it's not that crazy. It is a weird draft, and it's not exactly fitting to what I wanted to describe, but, you know, it's okay. Not all drafts go according to plan. I really need about 1 more piece of interaction than I have. The Aspirant is probably our best card, but we don't get to play a Feed the Swarm. I don't think I want Beetle number 2. Taking the Beetle is kind of committing to the white plan, I think. Oh god, this is tough. I think I want to take the Survivor and make sure I have enough 2-drops. Squad Commander doesn't fit our plan. Well, if we've got Clerics, Warriors, Rogues, I don't know how we're going to kill anything. I think we can make this work. Squad Commander is rather good. All right, I really need to fill in this 2 and 3 area. I also, again, really need a piece of interaction. It does seem rather violent. I mean, what we need is a Root Grazer. I think I need to take the practice tactics. I just don't have the interaction, and it sucks that a lot of my creatures don't work well with it, but it's kind of the world we're living in now. The Scythe Cat will work here. I wouldn't mind having access to a Cleric either, but we're getting towards the end of the draft, and I don't have all the pieces I need. I can't take another 4-drop. Man, that Blood Beckoning is punishing me a bit. The rare was a 1-mana 1/2. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what I was supposed to be doing in this draft. There's 5, 6, 7 plays before 4. I may end up having to play this. Ox would be all right. We're just getting pretty hefty. We could play maybe the Ox. And a Mesa Lynx. Yeah, I may just need another 2. Broken Wings we can play. Zendikar I think we could play too. I've not found the Banneret to be particularly good. Sorry, YouTube, I wanted to prove a point, and this draft just did not allow me to do it. There's a strong possibility I'm playing this. Because this is a very creature-heavy deck, some of them getting quite big. I think I may want a Kite Sail. I did have to get out of my comfort zone a little bit to draft this deck, which is not a bad thing either, and we got there on playables. Yeah, it's Green White Warriors party counters. You like the Outrider over the Felidar? I don't think I do. This grows over time and becomes a threat. It also interacts favorably with the Horn Beetle. The idea was how you would draft differently, depending on whether or not you want to win the draft or just maximize your value over time. I think this is what we end up playing. For Murica. America. All right, let's do our Stream Raiders battle, and then we can take this one out for a spin. That was a really unusual draft. I'm glad that even as the format is ending, you can still have a draft like that where you're having to think your way through it. This deck would love a Root Grazer. It was one that Hero J suggested. I think it was actually called the Balding Razor. But it's a clipper, not a razor. And it's been great. Moto with the kills, Simwife with the assists. Rewards for Cacman, J-Terp, Lord Frodo, Yak, and Adamaniac. Oop. Oop. All right, let's go get our blue chest. Does Wizards watch my stream and throw curveballs at me? We did get hosted by Magic earlier. So my guess is yes. Wizards is actively watching and deciding the cards that we're going to get. And throwing me curveballs. That would explain a lot. I suspect that this draft would have gone about the same, even if I was trying to draft open, because I ended up having to open myself up very quickly. And you'll still need to be able to do that, even if you're going for higher variance picks. We just didn't really get offered any. What sort of noises does a sad squad commander make? Between rounds, Squirt, we play Stream Raiders. If that's what you were asking about. Golly, I wish I had a bigger squad. Oh. Well, that's rather awkward. A bugle full of mud? That works too. It might even sound like a trumpet with a sock stuffed into it. So my plan was we were going to draw lands, and then we didn't. It was a good plan. It's just tuckered out a little bit here. They should take the Ox, but I think they'll take the Stomper. Meh. Good play is good. This displeases the Travis. Wanted to put the counter on something else in case they just untap and kill it. I mean, taking clerics off the board seems fine to me. Ideally, they don't have a subtle strike, but I'm not really in a position to play around one. I had assumed they'd hold this back to block and sack. Can't really rabid bite it. Just let them cycle the Celebrant. Lord of mercy. We kept a 3-lander, right? I thought we did. Y'all remind me to put lands in the next stack. I think we might need some of them. Yes, we do have to kill that. Otherwise, we just die. It's probably unwinnable. Not definitively. I think we've got a pretty good shot. I don't know what you guys are worried about. All right, so I think we're interested in a disenchant potentially. The problem is we really only saw one target for it, but it's a high priority target. They're at least likely to have Nahiri's bondings. Like, there's a chance they had 2 of them in hand. But I think we still need to bring the disenchant in, because I really can't beat the Relic Amulet otherwise, and this gives us more answers to it, presumably, than they have copies of it. And I think at this point we can cut the Canopy Baloth. It doesn't have counters. I don't think it's as good as the Ogs. Yeah, the challenge is if we draw the disenchant when they don't have it, we're in trouble. I do still like the flyer ability, because they're going to be gaining a lot of life. I need to be chonking away solidly. It's pretty good to put on a Felidar, too. We already have a Broken Wings main. So that was the question. Do we want 2 ways to interact with it? And normally I'd be nervous, but they have to have Nahiri's bonding in that deck, too. It would really surprise me if they don't. What's up, Worm? Yeah, we got some lands this time. I like lands. They're good. Sounds good. We're going to ask him some questions. And see how good the party tactics is here. We could spend 1 mana and deal 0 damage to something. It's pretty exciting. Have a good one, Zach. Yeah, this was a card I initially underrated. I'm pretty happy to have one of them in most green decks. The question becomes, told you, they had to have Nahiri's Binding. The question becomes, can you consistently do the thing with the stuff? So if I kill that and plus this, they're pretty close to dead. And this should get us through like a combat trick on their side, because they could Subtle Strike to trade. I don't want them to trade with this. So we're going to be resolute. Pick your poison. Yeah, but it also makes sure that the white decks get them, right? Like, imagine it was 2 and a white. It'd be a better card, and you wouldn't see them as late. Which is relevant. I ain't quite sure what they're thinking about here. That might be enough to get their party started. I would need to draw something pretty good here. Okay, okay. They found it. We did not get there. We got close to there, but not there. Because this is going to deal me, if I block like this, which are the blocks I want to make, I'll take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which doesn't work. I also can't just take it. If I block this one, I'm still taking 5, so we're dead no matter what I do there. We don't get another draw. So it's unlikely that we're going to win that one. But we gave it a go. We gave it a go. I don't think we really saw enough removal to have much more there. There were also several turns there where if we drew either of the enchantment removal cards, we just win by unbinding that cat. But all you can do is all you can do. There is some variance inherent in this game we call Magic. Air supplies. I mean, we lost the first game because we kept a 3-lander and literally never drew a fourth land. Like, that's not the deck's fault. Yeah, but I think even adding the feed in doesn't dramatically change how the deck functions. Like, that would give us one additional removal spell. And I think I like the Luminarch Aspirant and the landfall triggers more. My goodness. Just not being very polite. Now, we're kind of in a position where we're going to need the lands at this point, but I want to keep the spare supplies so that if they mine rot me, I can discard the expensive things and try to get the value back. I think the first land you bin, but them hitting this many lands means it's kind of unlikely we're going to draw more, which is a little scary. Some of the decks in this format, which I think is one of the reasons I've liked it less than I initially thought that I would, kind of require the correct opener to get going. Like, this deck is going to be very difficult to beat, very difficult to win with if they don't have the crab turn 1. But the crab turn 1 there is kind of cinching the deal. We're probably not winning this. Can we go back in time and not discard that one land? Have to take it because the land is one of the ways we begin to get out of this. I don't think it's particularly likely, but it could happen. Ooh, lordy. We may be just ready to move on here. I've seen enough. I've seen enough. The crab turn 1 is pretty scary. Later, not so bad. I don't think I necessarily... Well, I may still need the kite sail. What's up, Zombob? Good morning. What's up, Jay? All right, there's some hope. A little bit of hopium. But again, not really much interaction for something like a crab here. I think this time I just got to let him have the high drop. To an extent, if they're able to kill it, that may be all she wrote. But it's somewhat comparable to the crab, and that it needs to be killed, and relatively quickly. Afternoon, Wise. Life is good. Hope things are good in your world. This is a little crazy, but I think just crazy enough to work. You should bait him into taking a bunch of damage and then kill something on the way back. I want him to take a bunch of damage. This should sell the idea that this is what I was holding and make the Resolute strike better next turn. If we even need it. All right. I wonder why not attack with the flyer there. If they've got one of the rogues, it makes a little sense. I was supposed to hit another land here, and then I didn't. Which has kind of been the story of this deck, hasn't it? We got one shot. This is it. It's not going to work. We did. Could have played this to chomp, but then they play that to chomp. We do get to attach this for free, though, which is pretty neat. What we got here. Sorry, boys and girls of YouTube. I wanted to prove a point, but instead I just drafted a deck that couldn't draw the lands it needed to get there. I do appreciate you guys and gals watching. Even people who draft all day, every day, will draft a stinker now and then, or just have variance kind of get in the way. It doesn't mean that you're bad at Magic. It just means that variance is a thing that can happen in this game. I think it's worth noting that a game like that, if you don't have confidence in your drafting abilities, a game like that can make you think that you're a bad drafter. In the same way that getting a 3-0 can make you think you're a good drafter, even if you're potentially not. So it's worth going back and reviewing your drafts, reviewing your gameplay, thinking about what happened and why you lost. Because I think in that one, we mostly lost because we just really didn't draw the lands we needed. Right? So I don't think that means we need to go reevaluate everything about drafting. It means we need to try again. We've also are on a day where we've had a bunch of 3-0s and some 2-1s, so I'm not feeling particularly rough right now. But I think it's worth going back and reevaluating things. Anyway, appreciate you YouTubers tuning in. We will see you next time. Do not worry, Twitchers, there is more drafts to happen.